Welcome to Stoked with Megan McPhail, the podcast that helps you get super effing jazzed about your work, life, and bank account. I'm your host, Megan McPhail, a former burnt-out emergency veterinarian that quit my hard-earned career to become a seven-figure business coach, entrepreneur, and elopement photographer. Now I'm living a life I absolutely love, full of travel, adventure, and financial abundance, and I am hell-bent on inspiring others to do the same. Are you ready to say goodbye to the 9-to-5 grind and start going after some big, bold dreams? Then let's dive into this week's episode. Hey, it's your host, Megan McPhail, and can you do us a huge favor and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts? If you love this podcast as much as we think you do, then it will help us a lot if you leave us a review. More people will be able to find us on Apple Podcasts. We'll get the word out to even more people who want to be entrepreneurs, and it'll just be great all around. So please leave us a review. Thank you so much. Okay, so today I really want to talk about a few things that's been bugging me. And mainly it's some of the negativity and judgmental attitudes I have seen from people in regards to educators. And especially now, my primary job right now is teaching photographers how to be awesome elopement photographers. So I have the Elopement Photographer Mastermind. And then my other main job is teaching photographers how to coach others in educational programs. And a little while back, I was running an ad, and it basically just said, like, how to turn your love of photography into a coaching program and how amazing coaching programs are because they're low volume. You're really only working with a handful of people. You are really giving them personalized feedback. So it's not like an online course or something where it's all do it yourself. It's really like there's a lot more touch points, a lot more personalized feedback and accountability and support. And I really think that that's what more people need. So I was running that ad. It was for like a free masterclass, like an hour where I was teaching about group coaching programs. And I got quite a few negative comments on my ad from people, from random photographers that were like, there's already too many educators. Everyone thinks they can educate. And people with no experience want to educate. Like they've only been in the photography world for a few years and they think they can educate people. And that's ridiculous. And like the people who can't make it as photographers will then educate. And none of this is true. All of this is bullshit. And I want to talk about it from multiple viewpoints because, as most of you know, I'm a retired emergency veterinarian. I went to 4.5 years of undergrad, majored in biology, had to take a ridiculous course load. Then I did 4 years at vet school where, I had my head in a book for the entire time. Graduated with like over $140K worth of student loans. It's still, even though I've been paying it off since 2010, so 14 years, it's still six figures because of the interest rates. So it's very predatory. So for the first 3 years of vet school, it's really just book learning. We had our heads in books, we were taking exams, and then our fourth year, we had to be in the clinics. So in the first floor of the vet school, it was like the small animal clinic, the large animal clinic. We were actually working with patients and their owners, which was totally different from being in a more academic setting. But, I knew how to answer quiz questions, but I didn't know how to talk to like a human being. I had my head in a book for 3 years. I was socially awkward AF. So we had to learn how to do real physical exams on animals, like all this on-the-job learning. And you know who was teaching us that? The first-year interns. So basically the people who were 1 year ahead of us were really the main educators. And we had some residents and some attendings every once in a while, like kind of oversee what was going on. But we were really being taught by a person just a year ahead of us or one step ahead of us. And when I graduated vet school and I did an internship in emergency medicine, the person that I learned from on the job training, like pretty much everything that I knew to be a good vet, again, was a specialty intern. So somebody just a year ahead of me. And when I became a specialty intern in surgery, the person I learned from was a first-year resident. So again, somebody just 1 year ahead of me. And then I turned around and I helped the first-year interns. And by turning around and helping and teach people, it really solidified a lot of topics in my head. Like turning around and teaching somebody else something that I had just learned was one of the best ways to really solidify it in my brain. And that's how MDs, medical doctors, human doctors, as we call them in vet med, do it too. Like you basically go up this ladder, this like hierarchy, and you teach the person one step below you, and the person one step higher than you teaches you. You're not being taught by like the head surgeon of the school or something like that. He's going to breeze in and out and give you some pointers and tell you what you're doing wrong every once in a while. But your main source of on the job training, the things that really matter, are from somebody just a step ahead of you. And then you're paying it forward by helping the person a step below you. So if that's good enough for medicine, why is it that in every other industry, like photography, people think that you have to be like the most Insta-famous, successful photographer to even think about educating? Like, why do people think that? Or why do they think that if somebody is already teaching something, or if there's an online course about it, then like anybody else who tries to coach people in a low volume, more like one-on-one or one to like a small group of people, it's seen negatively and people are judgy about it. And it makes zero sense to me why this method of you learn something, you get good at it, and then you turn around and help somebody else with it. Why is that a bad thing? Like, why are people so freaking judgy about this? It drives me crazy. If it's good enough for doctors, it's good enough for freaking photographers.
Yeah. Similarly, in like the engineering field, when you're an undergrad, you're taking classes, but it's not always the professor. I mean, it's a lot of graduate TAs, right? So they're only a couple years ahead of you. They may have a bachelor's in engineering, but they're still working towards advanced degrees. So that's kind of like in college, and then like on the job, there's like, I mean, an array of new grads to like senior scientists, and there's only a few senior scientists, right? And their time is super precious doing like the hardest things that only they can do. So there's like this spectrum of people that we would go to either ask questions for mentorships, to like work on problems or work on projects and get like feedback. Like there's just lots of different people along that path. So yeah, it's just not like this is the educator and you have to learn from them.
Yeah, exactly. Right? I mean, there's a whole spectrum, and learning from somebody who just did the thing that you want or are needing to do is very valuable than somebody who did it like 20 years ago. Or like building a business in today's economy with today's algorithm, with today's market, is much different than building a business in 2016, like when I first started. It's just completely different. If I wasn't helping people every day and seeing them do this transformation between struggling to actually booking out their calendar, if I wasn't witnessing that every day, I would be so out of the loop on what to tell people to do for their businesses, because I'm still living off of all the SEO I built in like 2019, like, so someone who's far removed from this like first year of building your business isn't necessarily the person you want teaching you. It could be the person who just did the thing you want to do. So this idea that it's like, it's got to be just this one person who's the best at this, that's the educator, is just not reality. And that idea is actually keeping some really amazing educators out of the field. Because in my opinion, being a really good photographer or like going viral or being really popular amongst photographers, that's not what makes a good educator. Having a big following on Instagram and then figuring out a way to monetize that following is not what makes a great educator. Somebody who loves educating and who is dedicated to their students or clients getting results and a return on investment, and actually like working hard at being a good educator and getting feedback and like holding people's hands through it, that's what makes a good educator. Not somebody who excels in an industry, right? Just like how somebody who's a great engineer isn't necessarily a great manager, even though that's what you typically get promoted to. There's all these like hierarchies too that like we tend to see that don't work out that well. Like in veterinary medicine, it'd be like somebody who's a really great veterinary technician who was great drawing blood and running anesthesia and making schedules for like the other technicians, all of a sudden is promoted to practice manager, but they don't know how to manage a practice. So just because you're amazing at photography or you're amazing at XYZ doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a good educator. And there's a lot of people without huge followings who are really passionate about helping others, who did just accomplish something big that they feel like is amazing and their life has changed. And now they want to help other people change their lives. But then people are talking shit about them for wanting to do this and monetize it when they're only asking to be paid a few grand, whereas I paid $140K to be a veterinarian and dedicated my whole 20s to it, only to fucking hate it. And now you can pay somebody a few grand and a few months of your time and completely change your life. And it's somebody who's dedicated to helping you, dedicated to your success. That sounds fucking amazing to me. That sounds like what dreams are made of, because instead of paying some fucking university or institution all this money just to give you a shitty education and a shitty career that eats your soul up, you can actually give some money to a person, to a real life person that cares, that's just done the thing you want to do, that's now going to help you do it. Like, that sounds amazing to me, that this system is set up this way to actually help people. And then there are people out there talking shit about it, and it drives me bananas.
Another take on this is they say like everyone learns a little bit differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some people are more like hands-on, some people are more like visual, some people are more auditory. And so I think that like kind of translates into different educators or like the way different people teach.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, educator one in any field may be amazing, but maybe I don't vibe with them, or maybe like I don't like their presentation style or the way they go about doing something. So like having multiple options is always good. From a pure numbers standpoint, one or a few educators that are like the top of the industry in any industry just don't have the bandwidth to serve all of the other people. Right. So like you think of just like normal traditional education, think of how many universities are across the US.
Mm-hmm.
If you go a step lower, like how many high schools, there's public schools, there's parochial schools.
Mm-hmm.
What are the other names? We don't have
Private.
kids. Private, Montessori, all these different options
Mm-hmm.
for the way that people like view education. So I think in that case, maybe normal society has it right where they're generating lots of options. We're always ripping on society for like pigeonholing us and like having a crappy system, but
there isn't really a lot of options though.
In education?
Yeah. I mean, you're still learning all the same shit in all those schools,
Right.
But yeah, like unbeknownst to me, when I created my coaching programs for elopement photographers after like speaking to, what was it, like 40 people in 2020 and like hearing their struggles and stuff like that. And I was like, I got to create a coaching program. I got to create something for them that's more hands-on. I didn't realize I had ADHD at the time. And that a lot of the things that I do is to kind of manage that and get work done despite that. And then when I was teaching people, I was basically created a program for them that was pretty good for ADHD and neurotypical or neurodivergent brains. I didn't really realize that, but so many people have been like, yeah, I've bought online courses and I can't finish them. I can't even start them. But your program I can actually get through because there's deadlines, accountability, urgency, blah, 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 touch points, all that stuff. So yeah, people learn differently. The more options are out there and the more educators that are out there for you to be like, hey, I like this person. I vibe with this person. She's no bullshit, or she does sugarcoat things, or whatever vibe you are attracted to. It's important to have that person. But there's so many people who are vocal about their disdain towards educators that for me, when I'm actually trying to get people to become educators because they care and they would love it and they would be good at it, they're terrified too because of the judgment and the negativity, and like overcoming that imposter syndrome is really, really hard for them. There's like tons of times where they're just like, I can't do this, and I have to talk them through it. So then there's this other idea that there's too many educators out there, and I don't think that's the case at all. Seeing how hard it is to actually even become one and put yourself out there, there's no way that there's too many. You're just seeing ads because that's the way to get people's attention. So maybe you think there's too many or whatever. But there's really not. There's not enough, in my opinion, because there are so many different people out there with different teaching styles. Some people want a one-on-one coach or something like that. Like there's just lots of different variations to it. And then there's also like what you touched on, low volume versus high volume educators. And most of the people who are these Insta-famous people, the people with huge audiences, they are often high volume educators. So they're trying to get as many people into their online courses as possible, into their Facebook groups. And it's just all about getting as many people into their courses as they can. Whereas what I teach and what I do is low volume coaching, where you might be helping anywhere from 30 to 50 tops people at a time. And they're in containers and it's small, it's intimate, and they get personalized, feedback from me. And that's what I teach. And that's what I've seen people being critical of, is the people who are doing that. And I just don't see how there's anything that you can see wrong in people wanting to do low volume coaching. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me where the negativity is coming from. I think what people are upset with is like the ads they get or something like that. But like, that's what we need to do. Like, we've got to do ads to get people's attention, to know that we're here to help them. And if you don't need the help, just like anything on the internet, scroll past. Scroll past it. Like, we're not talking to you, probably. We're talking to the people who are struggling and need our help and that resonate with the message that we have. Like, we do market research. People resonate with this stuff. People resonate with being a six-figure photographer. And yeah, there's just a lot of haters out there, and I don't get it. And I don't want it to dissuade anybody from becoming an educator or becoming a coach, because what makes a good coach is coaching, not necessarily being the best of the best at photography. You'll become a better business owner as you are teaching people. So you'll both be going up, just like I did. You go up the ladder, the hierarchy, and you get better and better and better from teaching other people and teaching people who are just like a step or two below you. And it's not bad to be compensated for that, because you're giving people a return on their investment. And that's what's so cool about these low volume educators, is we can really create programs and offers and help people get a return. Whereas the high volume educators, it's really about their return, not the people within their courses. It's not really about their return on investment. Like, I'm sure they don't take the data to figure out what the return on investment is. So yeah, those are some things that have been bugging me. And more than anything, well, I had to get it off my chest, but I don't want other people to be like, oh, I can't be an educator because people are going to hate on me. Because they will, but I think that it's because they don't understand how any of this works. Do you have any input?
Yeah, it's just a bummer that the internet can be just so negative.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When it's kind of back to what you learned when you were a kid. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all.
Yeah, totally.
It's no skin off your back if someone's launching a group program or a coaching program or an online course or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Like, if it's not for you, yeah, move on and don't waste your time on it and your emotional energy on it.
Yeah.
If it's not for you.
Yeah. And I definitely have to learn to not respond to these people, because I definitely respond, because I really get triggered when I feel like somebody misinterprets my intentions. And my intentions is to help people and to help them grow their businesses. Hence why we spend so much time on this podcast. Like, I would just want to help people. So when somebody is like, oh, you're only an educator because you can't make money as a photographer or something, and I'll be like, that's not true, type. And I got to stop doing that, because they just double down on being an asshole. And I double down on trying to explain myself to be like, look, my intentions are good, but they have their own mind made up on who I am. And it's the worst thing that they can think of. And I just don't understand people who do that, who immediately assume the worst in somebody. I don't get it. And it bugs me. It's a huge trigger. But yeah, so anyway, hopefully this helps you think about education and coaching in a different light. And I think it's amazing that we have this ability to learn from others and to really improve our lives in such a short period of time, whereas my traditional education cost so much and literally stole my 20s from me. And now we can live our lives, build a business, pay a few bucks or a few $1,000s and like really benefit from that. Like, we're living in an amazing time, and let's start embracing that instead of shitting on it and being so negative and judgmental and all that stuff that people are. And let's create a little bubble where everybody's nice and supporting each other. That's why I had to delete Threads, because people were mean to me on there. And I was like, I like my bubble where everyone's nice. I want to get back to that. So Anyway, hopefully this helped. I feel better just venting and putting my thoughts out there for everyone to listen to. If you resonated, please send me a message that you did so we can all be in the nice, kind bubble together. Thanks for listening. Bye. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Stoked with Megan McPhail. If you enjoyed the show and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, and tell a friend. If you're looking for more inspiring content, check us out on Instagram at Stoked with Megan McPhail. And to learn more about my business coaching and how I can personally help you quit your 9-to-5, visit my website at meganmcphail.com. I hope this leaves you feeling stoked. See you next week.